who's the CEO of Cyient Semiconductors. Suman, hello, how are you today?
I'm good, Nathan. Thank you for having me on the show.
You started with Cyient just in 2025, in April 2025. Just tell me a little about Cyient Semiconductors and what your role is. Obviously, CEO, so you're running the show.
Yes, I have the privilege of leading Cyient Semiconductors. It's a company that was born from deep engineering roots and was really what we're trying to build the future of custom silicon with. My journey spans for over 2 decades in the semiconductor industry across global markets and a lot of transformative projects. What I really love is I like building teams and solving meaningful problems that our customers face. I love mentoring our next generation of innovators and really kind of do something with purpose.
Well, I mean that's very good. In terms of what you're doing at Cyient, it's tell me a little bit about the business. I mean, it's developing ASICs for a
So we're
market sort of globally or in India. I mean, just give us a little bit of a flavor.
Yeah, so we are a custom ASIC provider, and we do turnkey ASICs all the way from spec to uh, to tape out. But we also follow that up with supply chains. We actually ship silicon today. So we've got test facilities. We have the partnerships with foundry partners today. So we do end-to-end silicon development for our customers. We primarily focus on silicon that's analog mixed signal ASICs, over 40 nanometers sort of processes.
Okay, I mean that's actually very good maybe for markets like India, but I mean in as at the time of recording, you've got relationships with like foundries like Global Foundries, some relationships with companies like MIPS. So you've been like in very quickly establishing quite a few connections in the industry.
Right. And, we're focused on, like I said, the custom ASICs for really for power critical real time applications, especially on industrial automation and data centers. So, partnering with MIPS helps us bring intelligence into our silicon with the RISC-V based partnership. The Global Foundries gives us advanced fabrication technology, especially either in 40, 55, 130, or 180, and we're really trying to drive an IP portfolio across analog, RF, and mixed signal domains. So we're building chips that just don't commute, but they communicate, conserve energy, adapt to environments, and that's the future work we're designing today.
And it's for global markets or specifically for markets like India or because I know that it sort of spins out from India as well.
So we're doing for both markets. India is a big market that's continuing to grow, yeah, for us, and we're really building for global as well as the Indian markets.
Let's go a little bit into a little bit of your background because the idea of this show is to talk a little bit about you, give some personality to the executive. How did you fall into the world of electronics? I mean, was it from childhood or was it something you had to decide when you had to go to university? Because you've sort of lived across several countries as well in your childhood.
Yes, I had the privilege of being in many countries when I was growing up. Helped me really, understand cultures of various countries as well. But I think I was in high school. My dad actually showed me a Texas Instruments calculator, and I
Oh
said,
wow!
when I grow up, I think I want to work for that company. It was pretty cool. He didn't allow me to take it apart, but I took a lot of things apart in my house over the years and try to put them back together. So I always enjoyed the electronics piece of engineering quite a bit from childhood.
Well, at that time, and I'm just thinking about it, you could actually take things apart. Now it's all modules which you can't do
Yeah.
anything. You could have a probe on it, you could do soldering, you could unscrew things, but not anymore.
Not anymore. It's much more difficult to take things apart, but I still try to take a few things apart in during my spare time.
So then what that I mean, you did end up working at TI as your first job, but so like what yeah, is that the time when you said, okay, I'm going to study electronics at university, or was there something?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I actually decided I was going to go to Iowa State University because I found out that Jerry Jenkins, who was the CEO of TI, went to Iowa State, and he used to take a couple of people every year. So I decided I'd go to Iowa State to pursue my master's, and then really, get into TI. So I think he took 5 people every year. I was pretty determined to be one of those 5 that he took, and I got lucky where TI actually selected me to join in their analog mixed signal group that they were just starting up at that time, and I was lucky to have a job there. I think they asked me to join on the following month, but I said I'll be there Monday. So, and I drove down to Dallas from Iowa to start.
Wow, and what was your first job there?
My first job was a design engineer. I started in design, and primarily was doing serial port designs for a analog
Mm.
mixed signal IC way back when.
Well, I mean, way back then, when is 1995, I think we joined. So I think, yeah, it's it's um, it's one of those periods where it was electronics was. I was at Plessey Semiconductor that time, and I remember there was a lot of um, interesting. We'd signed the first ARM license, I think, around that time as well. So it was quite interesting at that time, very early days, and in all of that sort of evolution of what we have today. I mean, did you have? Obviously, you sort of grew through the ranks at TI, but tell us a little about your journey within TI itself, because you were there almost 18 years.
I was there a long time, and I think the journey of TI was I primarily started in design. I started to like chip definition, so I started to do a lot of product and chip definition over time. I had some great mentors, along the way. Especially my first boss was Lothar Katz, who was German of descent, and he was a very good mentor. So I learned a lot from my mentors, and then I kind of moved into the marketing side of the business as well, and then stepped up to managing the product line. I was able to launch a lot of businesses from scratch, especially the ARM only business, which is the Citara product line, the TI as flagship ARM line, and then I was privileged enough to launch the motor driver product line over time, which is both big businesses for TI today. So I enjoyed the journey at TI, just helping me grow as a person, grow as an individual, in semiconductor. So and with a lot of great mentors around me.
So I mean, I think one of the big breaks ARM got was through TI. Were you part of the team that time, or is that sort of
No, that
afterwards?
was actually driven out of a different group. The wireless business unit drove a lot of the ARM relationships, but I was in the ARM. We launched the first ARM where we had to partner a lot with ARM in those days. Just to kind of launch our first products out there. I think it was a Cortex AA based processor that we launched, and it's still doing really well today for TI.
Yeah, it is fascinating how a lot of the people who've worked on ARM over the years are still sort of doing very interesting things, either with ARM or sort of with competitors. It's quite fascinating to watch that tree, just like you have the Fair children, you have the ARM children now.
That's that's right. And open source was just coming on. As you know,
Yeah.
we at that time, and a lot of people don't know what open source was. And Jason Kreidner, who actually runs BeagleBoard right now,
Mm.
started BeagleBoard group to really start the open source movement, leveraging our initial ARM processors in TI. So it was a lot of fun. It was good fun times at that time.
So you went through the ranks at TI, and I mean, what do you feel like were the things you've learned and the things you achieved at TI that you're proud of?
Well, I think I was lucky to have really good mentors. So I think I learned a lot on the job, just how to drive a business efficiently, how to make money in the process, how to focus on margins, but also focus on operations. I think you have to learn the whole kitchen sink somewhere, and I think TI is a great place to learn that skill set initially. You're technically strong, but you're also business savvy, in making the right decisions for the company, ultimately leading to making money for the company as well.
No, I hear that quite a lot. When you work in I mean, sometimes there's this attraction nowadays in sort of the last 3 to 5 years, or maybe more, of graduating, going to a startup. But the you can learn a lot in a startup, and you do everything. But actually, there's a lot more you learn from process and sort of practices around the industry from larger companies, I guess. And I've heard a lot from people who worked with TI and Intel and various other large companies. So there is value to that as well, isn't there?
Absolutely. There's value to that. And, as you find people along the way that you can learn from and you network with, I think that really helps you. A lot of the network I have today, stems from the people that I worked with in the past. And you get a much larger ecosystem that you can work with in a large company. I don't want to take it away from the startups, as the startups have a great way for you to accelerate your career as well. So
Yeah.
you can learn fast on the job and you're doing a lot of things at the same time. But there is definitely something to having a managed process early on in your life as well.
Yeah, and that's why I was very careful with my words not to knock a startup, because going to a startup is also fun, and you can do both in some time in your career, I guess. From TI, did you get bored? I mean, what happened? Then you went on to onsemi.
Yeah, I had a really good opportunity show up outside TI. Actually, it was Fairchild Semiconductor, and a gentleman by the name of Chris Alexander and Vijay Lal actually recruited me out. And I felt that I was getting more and more into power semiconductors. I felt like power was really going to change the way we look at things, and it's a large industry today. Maybe over $60 billion out of the 600 billion TAM is all power. So it was an opportunity for me to take my learning from TI and help Fairchild kind of, find its path, if you will. So I felt like my learning would be accelerated at Fairchild. So I ended up at Fairchild, and we got acquired by onsemi in a couple of years. And that was a lot of learning that happened for me in short 3 years when the acquisition happened.
So then I guess your role must have changed then, and then that was an opportunity to sort of do something else then again.
Absolutely. So after the acquisition, I think I was asked to move to Phoenix, and I think the person at home, my spouse said Phoenix is just way too hot. So we ended up, I found another role. I had this company called Cyient Semi. I actually signed in that time, Cyient calling me for a role out of India, and I met with all the leaders there. Super impressed with both their IQ and their EQ, and I ended up kind of working for Cyient in their semiconductor practice, if you will, where we ended up acquiring a company that did the first analog mixed signal, which is ANSEM in Belgium. So that was a good
Oh, that
good
was a spin out from iMac. That was
that
the
was a
iMac
spin-off
spin
from,
out.
from
Yeah.
iMac. Yeah, that was a good spin-off. Good guys in the company, and really strong analog mixed signal and RF background.
So did you have to move to India for that, or was that something you were
No,
sort of
I
involved in the US?
No, I was still working out of Dallas all the time. And, we grew a team in Belgium. And then we started growing out in Hyderabad, where Sign was actually formed as well.
Okay. Cyient, was that a new division within obviously, it was a result of the Ansem acquisition. It sort of became a division within Cyient, is that right? Which you eventually went on to then now lead now as Cyient Semiconductor.
That's right. So it was a division with Cyan, and then over time it started to grow, both in the services side as well as in the ASIC side of the business. And then when COVID hit, I think the transition for all of us was hard. And then I felt like maybe I should just be in a local company because this required a lot of travel around the
Mm,
world. And when travel kind of shut down, out of the blue, I knew somebody at Allegro Microsystems, was a board advisor then for them. I asked me to join them as they were just gone through IPO. And it was interesting. It was to run their power and sensors business. So I ended up running that for them for the last 4.5 years.
Well, one of my other guests on this show was Mike Doog. So, he's an interesting person as well. So I think, yeah, it was quite a time, I guess, with Allegro. That was before, but you were there before he became CEO, I guess.
Yeah, I was there all the way actually from when I actually first started working for Mike. I was running the sensors business unit, and then over time, as Mike got promoted to CTO, I took over both the sensors and power business unit for Allegro Microsystems. And then when Cyient came calling maybe a year and a half ago at this point, saying, "Hey, India is changing." I think there's a really what I saw in Krishna was a convergence of ambition and maybe capability as India was scaling fast. It was also scaling smart. And as they shifted from volume to value, I felt like it was the right time to maybe make a move into Cyient Semiconductor as well.
I mean, that's the impression I get when I mean, I've been interviewing Indian CEOs as well. And I think one of the things I'm sort of getting an impression that, there's a real excitement that something's happening. And yeah, like for example, Sanjay at L&T Semiconductor, and various other people like him. You really see a passion. Is it something that you see? We've seen this many times since the late mid 1990s when Manmohan Singh sort of created the reforms, and then you had like the small electronics industry growing, even and then the telecoms. Are we in another sort of wave of that sort of little spike and then go back to old ways, or is this real?
No, I feel that the government's goal of 35 to 40% value addition by 2030 isn't our target. I feel like it's a movement, and they're really pushing the PLI, the product linked initiatives and the design linked initiative schemes for a reason there. And just the investment and the support from the government that we're seeing, I think is very different now. And I feel like there's going to be huge momentum. I feel like in terms of like the not just the incentives, but also the talent that's in India now. 250,000 engineers in the semiconductor, maybe 20% of the workforce for semi is out of India. And I feel like that there is big momentum there in India, especially for local companies. I've seen about 180 startups, all trying to do different things. I feel the ecosystem is right. The timing is right. For India to become big in semiconductors.
In, Interesting, because I think maybe about 15 years ago, I wrote an article for UK magazine said, "Can India ever create a Steve Jobs?" And then just more recently in the UK, in the Financial Times, there was an article that said, "Can India create an Nvidia?" And I think even with recent times, the FT article wasn't too complimentary about India creating an Nvidia because of whatever reasons, and I'm not going into that. That's not the reason we're here. So it will be interesting to watch how things develop. And for example, I see a lot of US successful execs in the industry have gone to India to try for over the last 10, 15 years, found it very difficult. And then now quite often they're running the operation from the US, like L&T, for example. So it's quite interesting.
For sure. I mean, I think India is changing though, both in terms of infrastructure. Like when I look at Hyderabad, for example, the airport is modernized. You can
Mm,
land out of immigration and, maybe, I mean, if you don't have a lot of checked-in luggage, I'm usually out in 25, 30 minutes, and I'm at the hotel in the high-tech city in another 25 to 30 minutes when there's no
mm,
traffic. So it is really changing. I feel like the investments there into improve infrastructure is big now, and I think the movement of people is also big because the highways are well connected now. So I think
mm.
just the talent migration that's coming in, plus all of the like I said, the initiatives from the government, just not on training the workforce, but also the incentives there is changing a lot. I mean, you can see Gujarat changing a lot. You could see Hyderabad changing a lot. I'd say that the newer cities are coming up really
Interesting.
fast right now. And I think I took my leadership team down there, and a lot of them felt like, I mean, it's their first time visiting India, and they all felt like it looked like Taiwan for them, Hyderabad, in many.
I mean, Hyderabad is very different, and I think I would say there is. It's almost like one of those high tech cities which was planned. Oh, although maybe it came together somehow through as part of a plan. But anyway, we can have another discussion about that. Uh, I think we're probably at an inflection point at this point. Let's talk a little bit about you and your uh, your hobbies and things like that. You're into stargazing, aren't you? Um,
Yeah,
and that's kind of what you do. And you've got some really amazing equipment, apparently.
I do. It reminds me of the semiconductor business. The setup time is a lot to kind of watch the planets. I've got a pretty large 10-inch Celestron telescope that I carry with me. It weighs a ton. It's got two large suitcases, and I get frowned upon at home for having all the other equipment that goes with it. But, it is a lot of fun. The setup process is a test of patience, and when you do get to see the stars, it is just an amazing view to kind of tell you that there are things outside that you don't know a lot about. So it is amazing. But things have changed a lot, even in the telescope business. With these, I'm using a C star telescope, an S50 now, and I can look at a I don't know, 7331 nebula in NGC in just a really fast amount of time than what it took me to do the setup as well. So things are changing with AI coming in and electronics coming in the telescope.
And what are the? I mean, I think what sort of inspired you with the astronomy? I mean, that's I don't hear many CEOs I talk to who really sort of take time to spend hours gazing at stars.
Well, I think it's just you start to feel when my principle in life is stay humble and stay hungry,
Yeah,
and if you want to kind of feel humble about yourself, as you were talking about Carl Sagan, if you read The Pale Blue Dot,
yeah,
and you watch the stars, and you just see that you're actually really small compared to all the other things
yeah.
going around you. So I think watching the stars actually helps you stay grounded, but it also helps you stay curious about what is out there, in the universe. So I think it's both curiosity and sort of like the need to kind of see more and understand more is there inside me somewhere.
Have you made any discoveries? I guess that's probably too much to ask.
And I wish I'm not that. I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? Maybe a year to spend enormous amount of time on this. I spend a couple of hours a week on this at best.
So,
Uh,
what I mean, what's the most distant stars you've seen? I mean, how do you measure? What's the metric you say to yourself, "Wow, I managed to see this." What's the metric? Is it the distance or is
well,
it
yeah, no, I think when I think it was last night I was watching I think it was 7331. It's about 40 million light years away, and I was able to see at least you have to do a lot of plating. You have to get all these images. You got to stack the images, and you see that the twin of Milky Way, some 40 million years light years away. It's kind of fascinating to see that there is a big galaxy right out there. Of course, M31, the Andromeda, is close by. You can get a good view of it, but this one that was 40 million light years away was kind of fascinating to see.
and one of the other interviews I've seen, one of older interviews I've seen of yours, you talk about your interest in neuroscience. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I happen to do a master's both in double E and biomedical engineering. I always found that the brain, which is is a supercomputer that's always fascinated me, and I think there's a lot you can learn from the way the brain works and your nervous system works. and apply it to actually into signal processing or on the semiconductor world. Especially like when it comes to sensors, for example, I look at it as, hey, if the sensor has to see something, before the main CPU kind of has to process it, maybe the sensor can make decisions. It's very similar to what your spinal cord does. When you touch an object and it's hot, you immediately withdraw because the signal has yet to reach your brain, but you've already withdrawn that because the spinal cord's making that decision. So it's like, I think I make it similar to what the brain does, and what the spinal cord does is what the sensors do at the edge versus what a centralized CPU does inside as well.
I mean, one of the things that with a career like yours and a lot of people who are successful, what are the things that you think you've learned over your career? I know you said about staying humble, staying hungry, but I think are there things that you sort of were real sort of pivotal moments in your career in your life where you said, you know, this is really something that I picked up my principles, my what I do in my daily life or in what I'm looking to do in the future.
Yeah, I think maybe one thing that does, kind of resonate with me, which one of my past CEOs has used, is really progress over perfection. I think you've got to make progress. As an engineer, you're always trying to, do some things right, and
Mm,
you're trying to make it perfect. But sometimes you just have to make progress. So I think that's something I've learned over time, that just to kind of come to peace with the fact that, besides getting perfect, you want to make progress over perfection. I think that's super important. And the other one, I think I think that has helped me really build good teams. I always tell my teams that you got to average me up. That means you got to hire smarter people who average you up, so I can start to look good over time. And I've learned the best outcomes come from empowered teams and not micromanaged ones. And if I were to do something in life, it's I make it a point to pay it forward. But I've had a lot of mentors help me when I was a young engineer, and sometimes there's a lot of people in the world who young engineers who need help, and it's really about paying it forward for them and kind of pointing them to a path as well.
excellent. I mean, my final question then is, what advice would you give to a young Suman or any youngster who's now looking to either do what you're doing or sort of achieve something in this industry or just in life?
Well, I think having curiosity and persistence is super important in life, um, and not giving up. Right? I think the persistence go. I think I heard it from somebody, so I'll use their words. But I think that the curiosity coefficient plus the persistence coefficient is probably going to be greater than IQ over time, because information is going to be around you because you've got AI. So, but if you're not curious and you're not persistent, I think it's going to be difficult to find your place.
Okay. Well, Suman Narayan, thank you very much.
Nathan, thank you so much for having me on your show.